Oh man, it's good to be back. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hauntline, the show dedicated to SoCal haunts and events. Man, let me tell you, a lot has happened during our hiatus. Things are shaping up for Haunt 2021, and it's good to say that we may actually get an action-packed year this year if things continue the way that they are. So there's a lot to talk about, and I'm excited to talk about it with you. It was around this time last year that we released our very first video where we speculated about Horror Nights 2020. So I figured let's start season 2 of the Hauntline the exact same way. Let's do some Horror Nights speculation. And in fact, there are actually a lot of signs that we may get an event this year. So let's break them down. The first big sign of life is that Horror Nights creative director John Murdy is back at work. Murdy had been furloughed since July 2020, 4 months into the shutdown of the major SoCal theme parks. Before announcing his return, he also tweeted, "The monster always survives," with a gif of Frankenstein's monster. This is a follow-up to a rather touching thread he tweeted out last year after the announcement of Horror Nights' cancellation, meant to assure us that the event would return eventually. But now, with him officially back at work, maybe we'll see one of his famous hint tweets soon enough. Another good sign for Horror Nights is that SoCal theme parks are actually opening up. After closing its gates on March 14th, 2020, Universal Studios Hollywood is set to open back up on April 16th with a limited park capacity. However, California Governor Gavin Newsom has announced that they are hoping that all California businesses will be able to open at full capacity by June 2021. This means that this summer, we could be able to visit parks without needing any sort of reservation, and it could mean that haunt events can happen without any major restrictions. But until then, and thanks to Universal's Taste of event, we know that 2 mazes originally built for Horror Nights 2020 are still up and are possibly being worked on now. The first maze is located in the queue for Waterworld, which housed House of a Thousand Corpses in 2019, and the second one is located next to the Revenge of the Mummies show building, which was Killer Clowns in 2019. These mazes stayed up since last year, which is wild considering Horror Nights typically scraps their mazes completely between seasons. So this tells me that they're probably hoping to carry over some, if not all, of their 2020 plans for this 2021 season. Speaking of 2020's plans, our friends over at HNNightmares have a new speculation map out for this year. And, well, it's interesting to say the least. Last year's final map predicted a very exciting lineup, which included the likes of The Haunting of Hill House, The Invisible Man, Billie Eilish, and Beetlejuice. But now, their latest speculation map is looking kind of bare. For 2021, HNNightmares is predicting that we will get a daytime Halloween event much like the one they held in Orlando last year. And honestly, I wouldn't mind that at all. Last fall in Orlando, Universal Studios decided to open 2 of their already built mazes during normal park hours for a limited time run. Then, oddly enough, they randomly decided to open up their Beetlejuice maze for like a day or 2. So that confirms that HNNightmares accurately predicted 3 of the event's mazes. HNNightmares, you did it again. The mazes featured scare actors behind plexiglass barriers and used a return time system similar to a fast pass, but more often than not, the mazes had short enough wait times that they didn't need to use the system at all. Now, Orlando held this daytime event because they couldn't host HHN 30 at full force. And so after being closed for an entire year, not making any money during that whole time, I can't imagine Hollywood is in any shape to throw a full force Halloween Horror Nights event this year. So if it's between a daytime event or no event at all, hell, I'll take a daytime event any day. The 2 mazes that are rumored to open up for our daytime event are a Halloween 3 maze and a Texas Chainsaw Massacre maze. From a fiscal standpoint, it makes perfect sense for both Halloween and Texas Chainsaw to make a comeback, since they have been used at the event in years prior. I'm sure they have lots of props and costumes and set pieces that they can reuse, so it's a great money-saving option. Plus, Justin from @HNNightmares noticed that the facade for the maze located by the mummy bears a striking resemblance to the Sawyer house from the movies. Plus, Will from the Nights of Horror discovered this sign peeking up from behind the wall of the maze at the Waterworld queue, which is a motel in Halloween 3. So I'd say that's all but confirmed. So unless we start seeing tents pop up in the back lot, I think it's pretty safe to say that Hollywood will give us some sort of a daytime Halloween Horror Nights event. Now, it is worth noting that someone spotted what looks to be a Horror Nights tent in an empty space behind the Curious George parking structure. This area is just past the Tram Garage, which was a new maze location in 2019, hosting Jordan Peele's Us and The Curse of Pandora's Box. This location is a bit out of the way from the park, so until we see maze walls going up inside of it, I wouldn't get my hopes up too far. But who knows? Maybe Horror Nights is looking to change things up this year. Now, if other maze tents do start popping up, I can't help but wonder if we'll see the return of the brand new maze location from 2020, located behind 2019's Creepshow tent. That new location was leading me to believe that we would have 4 total maze locations on the back lot. That is, assuming they keep the previous 3 maze locations intact. And honestly, that's a pretty great spot for a maze. I mean, it's typically empty space anyways, and it means less walking, and I'm always for that. There's also the question of the Walking Dead attraction, which was closed early last year, but was slated to come back for Horror Nights 2020. The attraction now resides in a very kid-friendly part of the park, and as a result, its once epic entrance has been drastically toned down and basically erased. Although it does seem that with a few quick changes, the unassuming structure in front of the entrance to the attraction could easily be reverted back to an entrance to The Walking Dead. Assuming the attraction is still intact, which I'm confident it is because it was a multi-million-dollar project, will it continue to be part of the Horror Nights lineup in the future? Because that space could be great as another rotating Horror Nights maze location, or even as a tribute store like the ones in Orlando. You're welcome, Universal. And say by some miracle we do have a full event. I wonder if mazes will include plexiglass barriers or how they'll navigate the ticketing systems and frequent fear passes. Assuming we're able to reach the proposed June reopening deadline without a hitch, we may not technically need plexiglass barriers anymore, although they would still be a nice way to protect the scare actors either way. And we may also not have any capacity limits on the parks, so we could see the return of multi-night tickets, which as of a few weeks ago seemed pretty impossible. But either way, I'm happy that it's early 2021 and that we're speculating about Halloween Horror Nights. Last year was definitely not the same without them, so I hope that whether it be a daytime event or hopefully a full force event at night, whatever it is, I hope it's done safely. And I think it's safe to say that we probably won't see any sort of announcement until maybe around June. But hey, who knows? We may be pleasantly surprised. And well, that's going to do it for this episode of The Hauntline. I want to say thank you to everybody who's supported us throughout this year. It's been a blast talking haunts with you, and I can't wait to do it all again. And hopefully to get some awesome coverage for maybe full events this year. I don't know. We'll see. I've got lots of fun episodes planned for the weeks to come. So if you like talking haunts, be sure and subscribe because you won't want to miss out. Be sure and follow us on Instagram and Twitter for all the latest haunt news. You can visit us on the web for links to all of our stuff. And you can also find our podcast wherever you download your podcasts. And until the next time, thank you for calling The Hauntline.